Safety is often described as the absence of danger, but the brain understands it in a quieter and more detailed way. A feeling of safety is built from many small signals arriving together. A familiar ceiling above you, a door that stays where you expect it to be, a steady temperature, a soft sound continuing without interruption. The knowledge that the next few moments are likely to resemble the moments that came before. None of these signals needs to announce itself. In fact, the most reassuring parts of an environment are often the ones that fade gently into the background. They do not demand attention. They simply allow attention to loosen. The brain is sometimes imagined as a detector designed only to notice possible danger. Yet it is also constantly gathering evidence that things are stable. It listens for patterns, compares the present with memory, and asks quiet questions without words. Is this place familiar? Are the sounds steady? Can the body rest here? Is anything changing too quickly? When the answers remain consistent, the brain can gradually reduce the amount of energy devoted to watchfulness. This does not happen through one single switch. It is more like a room becoming dimmer as several lamps are lowered, one after another. Muscles may soften slightly, breathing may become less hurried, thoughts may stop reaching so far into the future. Predictability plays an important part in this process. The human brain is always making small predictions about what will happen next. It expects the floor to remain firm, the walls to stay still, and familiar objects to appear in their usual places. When these expectations are repeatedly confirmed, less mental effort is required to understand the surroundings. A predictable environment is not necessarily perfectly silent or completely unchanging. A clock may tick. Rain may move across a window. A fan may produce a low, continuous hum. These sounds contain patterns. Their repetition allows the brain to recognize them, place them in the background, and stop examining each moment as if it were new. Familiarity offers a similar kind of ease. A room known well can be understood almost without looking. The distance between the bed and the door is already remembered. The shape of the furniture is stored in memory. Even in low light, the brain does not need to rebuild the space from the beginning. This is one reason familiar objects can feel quietly reassuring. A worn blanket, a particular pillow, a book resting beside the bed, or a cup placed in its usual spot may carry more than practical value. Their repetition, these objects become connected with ordinary evenings, completed days, and periods of uninterrupted rest. They become small landmarks in an internal map of safety. The same process can happen with routine. A sequence repeated each night gives the brain a gentle forecast. Curtains are closed. Lights are lowered. A glass of water is placed nearby. The room becomes quieter. Each step makes the next one easier to predict. Over time, the sequence itself can become a signal. The brain learns that these actions usually lead toward a period when fewer decisions are required. External activity is ending. Messages can remain unanswered until morning. Tasks can pause. The body does not need to solve the whole of tomorrow tonight. Light also contributes to this sense of stability. Bright, changing illumination draws attention because change may contain useful information. Softer and steadier light asks less from the eyes and the brain. Shadows remain calm. Familiar shapes stay recognizable. The room feels contained rather than exposed. This does not mean darkness is automatically comforting for everyone. Safety is personal and learned. Some people rest more easily with a faint lamp in the hallway or a warm glow near the bed. What matters is often not the exact amount of light, but whether it feels manageable, familiar, and under control. Control itself is a powerful ingredient in comfort. A window that can be opened or closed, a blanket that can be adjusted, or a lamp that can be reached easily gives the body a quiet sense of choice. The environment does not have to be perfect when it can be changed. Clear boundaries can provide the same reassurance. Walls, curtains, doors, and the edges of a bed define a smaller space within the wider world. They create a gentle separation between the place of rest and everything beyond it. Human beings have long sought sheltered spaces with a protected back and a view of the surroundings. Even today, many people naturally prefer resting places that feel enclosed without feeling trapped. Animals show similar patterns. A bird may choose a branch partly hidden by leaves. A cat may circle before settling into a corner. Small mammals often rest where there is warmth, cover, and more than one familiar sensory cue. The details differ among species, but the principle is shared. Rest becomes easier when the surroundings are understandable. The body also sends its own evidence of safety back to the brain. A slower rhythm of breathing, a supported posture, and warmth across the skin can all suggest that immediate action is unnecessary. The brain and body are always communicating in both directions. The mind interprets the room, while the body reports how it is responding. A long, gentle exhalation may be followed by a slight decrease in tension. A steady rhythm may make the next breath easier to anticipate. Nothing needs to be forced. The value lies in regularity. Just as repeating sounds can become background, repeating bodily rhythms can become familiar signals from within. Tonight, safety may not arrive as one powerful feeling. It may gather gradually through small confirmations. The room remains steady. The air stays comfortable. Familiar objects keep their places. The next sound resembles the last, and with each quiet piece of evidence, the brain may find that it has a little less to monitor, a little less to predict, and a little more permission to rest. A sense of safety is not created only by walls, temperature, or familiar surroundings. It can also arise through the presence of another calm living being. Long before people could explain nervous systems or social signals, they were already responding to the quiet reassurance of company. Human beings are deeply social creatures. The brain pays close attention not only to the physical environment, but also to the behavior of the people nearby. A relaxed voice, an unhurried movement, or a peaceful expression can communicate that the surroundings do not require immediate concern. This communication often happens without deliberate thought. When someone speaks gently, the brain notices the rhythm, volume, and melody of the voice before fully considering the meaning of the words. A steady tone tends to be easier to interpret than one that changes suddenly. The pauses feel natural. The pace is understandable. Nothing in the sound insists that attention must sharpen. This is one reason a calm conversation can feel different from reading the same words alone. The voice carries additional information. It suggests how quickly the moment is moving and whether the speaker appears settled. The nervous system listens to these details quietly, using them as part of its broader understanding of the situation. People also observe one another's movements. A body that moves slowly and predictably may signal ease. Shoulders that are not held tightly, hands resting without urgency, and a comfortable pace of movement can all contribute to a shared atmosphere of calm. These signals do not guarantee that everything is perfect. They simply provide evidence that the present moment is not demanding rapid action. The effect is sometimes called social regulation. One person's settled state can help another person's body become less alert. This is not mysterious. It happens because the brain is constantly using nearby people as sources of information. If everyone in a room appears comfortable, the environment may seem easier to understand. If a trusted companion remains relaxed, the brain may decide that it does not need to inspect every sound or movement independently. Some of the work of observation is quietly shared. This sharing has deep evolutionary roots. Early human communities depended on cooperation. No single individual could watch the surroundings, gather food, care for the young, maintain shelter, and rest at the same time. Living in groups allowed attention to be distributed. When some members of a group were awake and attentive, others could sleep more deeply. When people recognized one another and understood their roles, fewer resources were needed to interpret every interaction. Familiar social patterns reduced uncertainty. Trust developed partly through repeated experience. A trustworthy person was not simply someone who offered reassuring words. Trust grew when actions remained consistent over time. Promises were followed by behavior. Assistance arrived when expected. Boundaries were respected. The brain learned that this person's presence usually made the world more manageable. Consistency remains central to trust today. A companion who responds in a familiar way can become part of the brain's map of stability. Their footsteps, habits, or ordinary evening sounds may become associated with companionship rather than interruption. Even quiet company can matter. Two people do not need to speak continuously for their presence to feel supportive. Sitting in the same room while reading, working, or listening to soft music can create a gentle awareness that the space is shared. Each person remains independent, yet neither is entirely alone. Many animals also rest differently when surrounded by trusted members of their group. Herd animals may settle while others remain upright. Birds gather closely on sheltered branches. Some primates sleep near relatives or long-term companions. The arrangement allows warmth, recognition, and shared awareness. Domesticated animals can provide similar signals in human homes. The slow breathing of a sleeping dog, or the quiet stillness of a resting cat, may add another regular rhythm to the room. The animal's relaxed behavior can be interpreted as simple evidence that the environment feels ordinary. The effect depends on trust. Unfamiliar company may require more attention because the brain has less information about what to expect. Familiar companionship is different because it comes with a history. Past interactions help the brain predict future ones. Memory is therefore an important part of social safety. The brain stores not only events, but also patterns of tone, timing, and response. It remembers who tends to listen, who moves carefully through shared space, and who respects a request for quiet or distance. Being respected can be deeply reassuring because it supports a sense of control. When another person accepts a boundary, the body does not need to work as hard to protect it. The ability to say no, Close a conversation. Choose a comfortable distance or ask for privacy. Makes the social environment easier to navigate. Healthy boundaries are sometimes mistaken for separation, but they often make closeness more comfortable. Clear limits reduce guessing. Each person knows what is welcome and what is not. The relationship becomes more predictable because it contains understandable edges. This can be seen in very simple interactions. Knocking before entering a room, lowering one's voice when someone is resting, or asking before moving another person's belongings are small acts of respect. Each action communicates that the other person's space and choices matter. Such gestures may appear ordinary, yet the brain notices them. They help create a world in which social contact does not require constant defense or explanation. Attention can remain softer because the environment is cooperative. Gentle touch can also carry information when it is welcome and familiar. A hand resting lightly on a shoulder, a brief embrace, or the warmth of sitting close to someone trusted may support a feeling of connection. The important element is consent and expectation. Reassuring touch is reassuring partly because it is chosen, understood, and easy to end. A similar principle applies to spoken reassurance. Words tend to feel most believable when they match the surrounding behavior. A calm statement is more effective when the speaker's voice, timing, and actions are also calm. The brain compares the message with everything around it. When these signals agree, less interpretation is required. The words say that the moment is manageable. The voice says the same. The person's movements confirm it. The relationship's history supports it. Little by little, the social world becomes easier to read. And in a quiet room, where another trusted presence is breathing steadily nearby, the brain may recognize an ancient possibility. Awareness does not always have to be carried alone. The brain does not judge every place, only by what is happening in the present. It also compares the present with what has happened there before. A room can feel restful not simply because it is quiet, but because quiet evenings have unfolded there many times. A certain chair, a particular scent, or the faint sound of water moving through pipes may become linked with ordinary, uneventful nights. Memory gives surroundings a history. When the brain enters a familiar place, it begins matching current details with stored patterns. The shape of the doorway, the texture beneath the feet, the quality of the air, and the arrangement of nearby objects all contribute to recognition. When those details fit an established memory, the environment requires less investigation. This kind of recognition is rarely a complete, conscious thought. A person may not deliberately notice the familiar scent of wood, fabric, soap, or paper. Yet the brain can still use it as evidence that the setting is known. Smell has an especially close relationship with memory. Signals from the nose reach brain regions involved in emotion and recollection through pathways that are unusually direct. This is why a faint scent can sometimes bring back the feeling of a place before a clear image of it appears. The scent of clean bedding may recall many nights of rest. The smell of a familiar room after rain may carry the memory of shelter. A mild trace of tea, old books, or warm wood may belong to a long sequence of peaceful evenings. The scent itself is not universally calming. A fragrance that feels comforting to one person may be neutral or distracting to another. Its meaning grows from experience. Repeated associations teach the brain what a sensory cue usually predicts. Sound develops meaning in much the same way. A distant train may feel disruptive in an unfamiliar place, yet become reassuring near a home where it has passed at the same hour for years. The gentle movement of an elevator, the closing of a nearby gate, or the low murmur of traffic can become part of the expected nighttime landscape. Once a sound belongs to the pattern of a place, the brain may stop treating it as new information. It knows the beginning, the duration, and the way the sound fades. Familiarity turns a small interruption into confirmation that the evening is proceeding normally. This helps explain why some people sleep less easily during their first night in a new environment. Even when the room is comfortable, the brain has not yet built a reliable map of its details. Every creak lacks a history. The direction of every sound is less certain. The light from the window falls at an unfamiliar angle. After several nights, the same place may feel different. The sounds acquire sources. The shadows become recognizable. The body learns which surfaces are soft, where the air moves, and how the building settles after dark. The room has not necessarily changed. What has changed is the brain's prediction of it. Memory turns uncertainty into expectation. Nighttime rituals work through a related process. Their value often comes from repetition rather than complexity. A ritual can be as simple as washing a cup, arranging a blanket, turning a lamp down, or reading a few pages. Repeated in a similar order. These actions form a bridge between the active part of the day and the quieter period that follows. The brain begins to recognize the sequence before it reaches the end. The first action predicts the second. The second predicts the third. Each familiar step narrows the range of what is likely to happen next. During the day, attention may move between many possibilities. There are choices to make, conversations to follow, and tasks that remain unfinished. An evening sequence gradually reduces those possibilities. Fewer things are beginning. More things are being placed aside. This reduction matters because uncertainty uses mental energy. When the brain cannot predict what comes next, it continues gathering information. A stable ritual offers a gentle answer. The next few minutes are already partly known. The ritual does not need to be followed perfectly. Its reassuring quality comes from general consistency, not strictness. A slightly different cup, a later hour, or a missing step does not erase the pattern. The brain is skilled at recognizing a familiar structure, even when the details vary. Many cultures have developed evening customs that serve this quiet purpose. Lamps are lowered, doors are checked, bedding is prepared, voices soften, shared spaces become still. These actions are practical, but they are also symbolic. They mark a change in responsibility. The work of the day is no longer expanding. The household is moving inward. For much of human history, nightfall changed what could be done. Limited light naturally reduced travel, labor, and social activity. People gathered near shelter, warmth, and familiar companions. The environment itself encouraged a slower rhythm. Modern lighting can extend activity far beyond sunset, but the brain still responds to transitions. A sudden change from bright activity to complete stillness may feel abrupt. A gradual sequence gives attention time to settle. This is one reason dimming light in stages can feel more natural than switching instantly from full brightness to darkness. The visual environment changes slowly enough for the brain to follow. The room becomes quieter in appearance before sleep begins. The same principle applies to sound. Evening sounds often become fewer and softer over time. A conversation ends. Water stops running. A page turns less frequently. Eventually, only the most stable background noises remain. These gradual changes create a sensory slope rather than a sharp edge. The body is not asked to move immediately from alertness into rest. It is guided through a period in between. Personal objects can become part of this transition. A familiar robe, a bedside lamp, or a book handled each night may act as a cue because it belongs to the same sequence. The object does not cause rest by itself. It helps the brain recognize the kind of moment that is beginning. Even the act of placing things in order can be quietly reassuring. Closing a drawer, setting a device aside, or preparing what will be needed in the morning reduces uncertainty about the immediate future. Small, unfinished decisions are given temporary endings. A day does not need to be completely solved. It only needs a boundary, memory, routine. Scent, light, and sound can work together to create that boundary. Each cue is modest, but their agreement gives them strength. The room smells familiar. The actions are known. The objects are in place. The evening is following a recognizable path, and when the brain recognizes the path, it may stop asking so many questions about what comes next. The night becomes not an empty stretch of uncertainty, but a sequence remembered well enough to be trusted. Temperature is one of the quietest ways the body decides whether a place is suitable for rest. It is noticed through countless small receptors in the skin. Yet it often remains outside conscious attention until the air becomes too warm, too cool, or begins changing unpredictably. A comfortable temperature does more than prevent discomfort. It reduces the need for adjustment. The body no longer has to search for a cooler surface, pull fabric closer, move away from a draft, or change position repeatedly. When warmth remains within a manageable range, the environment asks less of the nervous system. Human beings are particularly sensitive to changes in temperature because maintaining internal balance requires energy. The body continually produces heat, releases it, and redistributes it through the skin and circulation. Most of this work happens automatically. Before sleep, internal temperature begins to shift. Heat moves outward toward the hands, feet, and skin, allowing the central parts of the body to cool slightly. This gradual change is part of the body's natural daily rhythm. A room that is comfortably cool, combined with bedding that can be adjusted, supports this movement without demanding much attention. The exact temperature that feels pleasant differs from person to person. Clothing, humidity, airflow, bedding, and habit all change the experience. What matters to the brain is not a single perfect number, but the ability to maintain a stable and controllable balance. A blanket illustrates this balance well. It creates a small layer of warm air close to the skin while remaining movable. It can be folded back, drawn closer, or shifted to cover only part of the body. Because it is both protective and adjustable, it offers warmth without removing choice. The gentle weight of bedding may also make the body's position easier to sense. Receptors in the skin, muscles, and joints continuously report where the body is and how it is supported. Clear, steady pressure can provide simple sensory information. The legs are resting here, the shoulders are supported there, and the body is no longer moving through space. This internal sense of position is called proprioception. It usually works so smoothly that it goes unnoticed. When lying on a stable surface, the brain receives consistent messages from the body. The mattress supports weight. The pillow holds the head. The joints remain within familiar ranges. The result is a clear physical map. A surface that shifts too much or provides uneven support requires repeated correction. Muscles make small adjustments. The brain continues checking where pressure is building and whether posture needs to change. A supportive resting place reduces this work by distributing weight more predictably. Long before modern beds, people improved resting surfaces with whatever materials were locally available. Dry grass, reeds, leaves, wool, woven mats, animal fibers, and raised wooden platforms all helped separate the body from cold or damp ground. These materials were not merely comfortable. They created a more stable boundary between the sleeper and the surrounding environment. Raised sleeping areas offered several advantages. Air could circulate underneath. Moisture was less likely to collect around the body. The resting place became visually and physically distinct from the rest of the shelter. That distinction remains meaningful in modern rooms. A bed is not simply another horizontal surface. Through design and habit, it becomes a clearly defined zone associated with stillness. Its softness, height, fabrics, and shape communicate that a different kind of activity belongs there. Architecture can support this feeling through layers of refuge. A house stands within the wider landscape. A room exists within the house. A bed occupies a smaller area within the room. Bedding creates another boundary close to the body. Each layer narrows the immediate environment. Many people naturally find corners, alcoves, window seats, canopies, and high-back chairs comforting. These spaces limit the number of directions that need attention while still allowing a view outward. Environmental researchers sometimes describe this preference through the ideas of refuge and prospect. A protected position combined with enough visibility to understand the surroundings. A place of refuge does not need to be small or enclosed on every side. It may simply provide a solid wall behind the body, a clear entrance, and an orderly view of the room. When the structure is easy to read, the brain can form a simple spatial model. Ceiling height can influence this model as well. High ceilings may feel open and expansive, while lower ceilings can make a resting area feel more contained. Neither is universally better. A room often feels most reassuring when its proportions match its purpose. Large, open spaces may suit movement and activity. Smaller, softer areas may suit reading, conversation, or sleep. Good design creates transitions between them rather than expecting one space to serve every need equally. Materials also shape the experience of shelter. Wood, fabric, plaster, stone, and woven fibers interact with light and sound in different ways. Soft materials absorb some echoes, making a room feel quieter and closer. Hard surfaces reflect sound, which can make a space seem larger or more active. Texture gives the hands and skin additional information. Smooth cotton, brushed fabric, polished wood, and a familiar rug each provide predictable sensations. The comfort often comes not from luxury but from consistency. The surface feels the way the brain expects it to feel. Even airflow matters. Completely still air can feel heavy, while strong or irregular drafts may attract attention. Gentle ventilation creates a middle ground. Fresh air enters without producing sudden changes across the skin. Shelters throughout history have been designed around this balance between protection and airflow. Openings allowed smoke and heat to escape. Curtains, shutters, screens, and doors could be adjusted as weather changed. The most useful shelter was not sealed permanently from the world. It allowed the environment to be managed. This ability to regulate surroundings is one reason small controls can feel so reassuring. A bedside switch, an adjustable vent, a movable curtain, or an extra layer of fabric gives the resting person a way to respond without leaving the protected space. The brain does not require complete control over everything. It often settles when a few immediate conditions can be changed easily. Warmth can be added. Light can be reduced. Air can be allowed in. The body can shift to a more supported position. These simple options reduce the feeling of being at the mercy of the environment. As the night continues, comfort may come from the agreement between many physical details. The air remains steady. The surface beneath the body does not move unexpectedly. Fabric rests lightly against the skin. Walls shape the room into an understandable space. No single detail has to create the entire feeling. Together, they form a quiet structure around the body, allowing it to remain warm enough, supported enough, and sheltered enough to become still. Sound continues to shape the sense of a place even after the eyes are closed. Vision can be softened by darkness, but hearing remains open in every direction. The ears do not need to turn toward a sound before receiving it, and the brain continues sorting the acoustic environment even during periods of deep rest. This does not mean that every sound is treated as important. The auditory system is skilled at separating steady background patterns from events that deserve attention. A sound that remains regular can gradually become part of the room itself, almost like the color of the walls or the shape of the ceiling. Consistency is especially helpful because the brain is sensitive to change. A quiet room followed by an isolated noise may attract more attention than a room containing a continuous, gentle sound. The isolated noise stands out against the silence. It creates a new piece of information that must briefly be examined. A stable soundscape reduces these sharp contrasts. The soft movement of air through leaves, the distant wash of ocean water, or the low murmur of a building at night can form an even acoustic background. Smaller sounds are absorbed into the pattern rather than appearing suddenly from nowhere. This process is sometimes called masking. One sound does not erase another, but it reduces the difference between the background and a brief interruption. The brain is less likely to treat every small creak or movement as a completely separate event. The quality of the background matters. Sounds with sudden rises, irregular pulses, or strong changes in volume can remain attention-grabbing. Sounds that vary gradually are easier to follow. Their edges are soft. Their next moment is not identical to the last, but it is similar enough to be anticipated. Natural soundscapes often contain this balance between repetition and gentle variation. Waves do not reach the shore with mechanical precision, yet they follow a recognizable cycle. Wind does not move continuously at one volume, but its changes often unfold slowly. A quiet stream contains thousands of tiny movements while maintaining an overall steady character. The brain can recognize the larger pattern without tracking every detail. This ability is known as habituation. When a harmless stimulus repeats without meaningful change, the nervous system gradually responds less strongly to it. Attention is conserved for information that is new or useful. Habituation is not simple. Ignoring. It is a form of learning. The brain gathers evidence over time and concludes that a particular sound does not require a response. A nearby heating system may seem noticeable on the first evening, then almost disappear from awareness after many nights. The same thing happens in towns and cities. People may become accustomed to distant trains, elevators, ventilation systems, or the steady movement of late traffic. Someone visiting the same place may notice every detail because those sounds have not yet been classified. The familiar listener already knows their timing and character. The sounds belong to the local rhythm. Rhythm itself can be reassuring because it makes time easier to predict. Repeating patterns divide a continuous night into understandable intervals. A soft pulse, a slow mechanical hum, or the regular motion of water provides structure without demanding a decision. The body is also filled with rhythms. Breathing rises and falls. The heart contracts and releases. Muscles make small adjustments. These internal patterns are not perfectly uniform, but they remain within familiar ranges. When an external rhythm is slow and steady, the brain may begin to organize attention around it. This does not mean the body automatically copies every nearby sound. Instead, predictable timing reduces uncertainty. There is less need to wonder when the next sound will arrive. Music uses this principle in a more deliberate form. Gentle music with an even pace can create a clear temporal path. Notes arrive in relation to one another, and phrases resolve without surprise. The listener does not need to predict the exact melody to sense that the music is moving in an orderly way. For bedtime listening, simplicity often matters more than complete silence. A sparse arrangement leaves space between sounds. A narrow range of volume prevents sudden peaks. Repetition makes the structure familiar, while subtle variation keeps it from feeling rigid. The human voice can create a similar pathway. Slow narration offers regular pauses and complete sentences. The voice becomes an acoustic guide through time. Each phrase begins, unfolds, and ends. The listener is not required to respond. This one-way flow can be restful because conversation usually involves preparation. During ordinary dialogue, the brain listens while also deciding when to speak, what to say, and how the other person may react. A calm bedtime narration removes that responsibility. The voice is present, but nothing is expected in return. The physical shape of a room influences how such sounds are experienced. In a room with many hard surfaces, sound may reflect repeatedly, producing echoes that blur its source. Softer materials shorten those reflections. Curtains, rugs, upholstered furniture, books, and bedding absorb parts of the sound and make its direction easier to understand. A room with gentle acoustics often feels quieter even when the actual sound level has not changed greatly. Words become clearer. Footsteps lose their sharp edges. The space feels less empty because sound does not continue bouncing after its source has stopped. Architects and designers use this knowledge in libraries, bedrooms, waiting areas, and other places where calm attention is useful. Sound-absorbing surfaces, quieter ventilation, and separation from busy corridors can reduce the number of acoustic events the brain must sort. The position of sound also matters. A steady sound coming from one known location is easier to map than a series of noises appearing unpredictably from different directions. Once the source is understood, the brain can place it within the room. Closing the eyes may even make this map more noticeable. The air system is above. A faint appliance is across the room. Water moves somewhere behind a wall. Each sound occupies a stable point in space. Together, they reveal that the environment is continuing normally. Complete silence can be pleasant, but it is not the only sound of safety. For some people, silence feels spacious and clear. For others, a soft acoustic background feels more settled because it confirms that familiar systems are still running and the world has not become unnaturally still. The most comforting soundscape is therefore not universal. It depends on experience, preference, and place. What matters is that the sounds are understandable, manageable, and free from abrupt demands. As the night grows quieter, hearing does not have to close itself away from the world. It only needs a pattern it can learn. A low rhythm continues. The room responds with soft reflections. Small sounds rise and disappear without breaking a larger flow. And once the brain has recognized that flow, it can allow the sounds to continue without following each one to its end. Vision is often the first sense to build a map of a place. In only a few moments, the brain gathers information about distance, movement, edges, openings, and the arrangement of objects. It does not need to name every detail. It simply begins deciding whether the scene is clear enough to understand. A visually calm environment is not necessarily empty. It is a place where objects relate to one another in an orderly way, where pathways remain visible, and where the eye can move without repeatedly encountering confusion. The brain is especially attentive to contrast and change. A bright reflection in an otherwise dim room can draw the gaze again and again. An object placed unexpectedly in a familiar walkway may remain noticeable even when it is harmless. Visual attention is designed to find what differs from the background. When the room contains fewer sharp contrasts, fewer unexplained shapes, and fewer competing points of focus, the eyes can settle more easily. The scene becomes readable as a whole, rather than a collection of separate details requiring inspection. Order contributes to this readability. A chair placed near a table, books resting together, and clear floor space create understandable relationships. The brain can quickly recognize the purpose and position of each area. Visual disorder does not always mean physical danger, but it can increase mental work. When many unrelated objects overlap, pathways are hidden, or surfaces contain too much information. The brain must spend more effort separating one shape from another. This effort may be subtle, yet it can keep attention slightly more active. A calm room often includes areas of visual rest. A plain wall, a broad curtain, an uncluttered surface, or a view of the sky gives the eyes somewhere to pause. These quieter areas make the more detailed parts of the room easier to process. The edges of objects matter as well. In harsh light, furniture can cast strong shadows that break familiar forms into unusual shapes. Softer illumination preserves enough definition for recognition while reducing dramatic contrast. A table remains clearly a table. A hanging coat keeps its ordinary outline. This is one reason indirect light can feel gentle. Instead of shining directly into the eyes, it reflects from walls or ceilings and spreads across the space. The source is less dominant, and brightness changes more gradually from one area to another. Warm-toned evening light may also resemble the natural colors that appear near sunset and around small domestic sources of illumination. The brain has encountered these changes across many generations and throughout individual life. Cooler daylight supports activity and clear visual discrimination, while warmer evening light often accompanies a reduction in activity. The effect is influenced by timing. Light reaching the eyes helps regulate the body's internal clock, a daily system that coordinates wakefulness, temperature, hormone release, and sleep. Morning brightness tends to support alertness. As evening arrives, lower light levels help signal that the active part of the day is ending. This process does not depend on darkness alone. The pattern across the day matters. A clear difference between daytime brightness and evening dimness gives the brain useful information about time. When light remains equally bright at every hour, the boundary between activity and rest becomes less distinct. Windows provide another kind of visual timing. Even when the view is simple, the changing sky shows that the world is moving through a familiar cycle. Blue fades toward gray. Reflections soften. Distant buildings lose detail. The room gradually becomes more prominent in the landscape outside. A window can feel reassuring when it offers information without creating exposure. Curtains, blinds, or shutters allow the view to be adjusted. The outside world can be seen, softened, or closed away according to preference. This ability to control visibility is closely connected with privacy. Rest becomes easier when the person inside a space does not feel continuously observable. Screens, curtains, walls, and thoughtful window placement create a boundary between being able to look outward and being visible from outside. Privacy reduces the need to manage appearance or respond to others. Within a private room, expressions can soften, posture can change, and attention can turn inward. The space permits a temporary release from social performance. Clear sightlines can exist alongside privacy. From a resting position, it may be comforting to see the doorway or understand where the main opening is located. The brain does not need a wide view of everything. It often prefers a simple, coherent view that explains how the room connects with the spaces beyond it. Designers sometimes use gentle transitions to support this understanding. An entryway leads into a living area. A hallway narrows before opening into a room. A rug, change in flooring, or shift in ceiling height marks one zone from another. These transitions act like visual punctuation. They tell the brain that one type of space is ending and another is beginning. The boundaries are clear without being severe. Wayfinding depends on similar principles. In a well-organized building, entrances, corridors, and destinations are easy to distinguish. People feel more at ease when they can understand how to enter, where to move, and how to leave without solving a puzzle. Even in a small room, orientation matters. A clear route to the door, an accessible lamp, and familiar objects near the bed make the space easier to navigate in low light. The brain knows where the body is in relation to the room. Color can also influence visual effort. Extremely saturated colors and strong contrasts may hold attention. while muted colors tend to recede. Soft blues, warm grays, gentle greens, and natural browns are often used in restful spaces because they create broad fields without demanding constant examination. No color is calming for everyone. Personal experience and cultural meaning shape the response. A color associated with a familiar home may feel more reassuring than one chosen according to any general rule. Nature provides many examples of visual complexity that remains easy to absorb. Leaves form detailed patterns, yet the patterns repeat. Clouds change shape, but their movement is gradual. Water reflects light in countless small variations while maintaining a continuous surface. Natural scenes often contain what researchers describe as soft fascination. They hold attention lightly without requiring intense concentration. The eyes can follow moving branches, shifting shadows, or distant rain while the mind remains free to wander. Bringing natural elements indoors can create a similar effect. A plant, a wooden surface, a stone object, or a view toward trees introduces patterns that are irregular but coherent. They are detailed without appearing chaotic. The reassurance comes from balance. Too little information may feel blank or unfamiliar. Too much may feel demanding. Between them lies a visual environment with enough detail to feel lived in and enough order to remain understandable. As evening settles over a room, the eyes continue making small assessments. The doorway is clear. The curtains are closed to a comfortable degree. Objects keep recognizable outlines. The route through the space is known. Nothing in the scene has to be studied urgently. The visual world becomes quieter, not because it disappears, but because everything appears to be in its proper place. The feeling of safety is shaped not only by what surrounds the body, but also by what the body reports from within. The brain is always receiving information from the lungs, heart, muscles, stomach, skin, and joints. Most of these signals remain below conscious awareness. Yet together, they help create a quiet sense of whether the present moment requires effort or allows release. This internal sensing is known as interoception. It is the brain's way of noticing the condition of the body itself. A faster heartbeat, shallow breathing, or tightly held muscles can suggest that the body is preparing to do something. A slower pattern, supported posture, and reduced muscle tension can suggest that immediate action is no longer necessary. These signals are not simple commands, and they do not always match the surroundings perfectly. They are pieces of information that the brain considers alongside everything else. Breathing is one of the most noticeable of these internal rhythms, because it can happen automatically while also being influenced gently. During ordinary activity, breathing changes with movement, speech, temperature, and emotion. It becomes faster when the body needs more oxygen and quieter when demand decreases. At rest, a steady breathing rhythm can make the body's internal environment more predictable. Each inhalation is followed by an exhalation. The chest rises, pauses briefly, and settles again. The pattern repeats without requiring careful supervision. The exhalation is often slightly associated with release. During a calm breath out, Some muscles involved in inhalation reduce their effort. The chest moves inward. Pressure shifts gently through the torso. The body completes one small cycle of work. There is no need to control every breath. Too much attention can turn a natural rhythm into another task. The reassuring quality comes from allowing breathing to become comfortable and regular, rather than forcing it toward a particular count or depth. A similar principle applies to the heartbeat. The heart does not beat like a perfectly uniform machine. Its timing changes slightly from one beat to the next as the body responds to breathing, movement, and many automatic adjustments. These tiny variations are part of a flexible system. The nervous system is continuously balancing activity and recovery, increasing effort when needed and reducing it when conditions allow. Rest does not mean that the body becomes inactive. It means that its work becomes quieter and more economical. Muscles also participate in this transition. Even while sitting or lying still, the body maintains small amounts of tension to support posture. The jaw, shoulders, hands, abdomen, and legs may hold more effort than is necessary, simply because that effort has continued unnoticed. When support is reliable, some of this work can be transferred to the environment. The chair holds the back. The pillow carries the weight of the head. The bed supports the hips and legs. Muscles do not have to keep proving that they can hold everything in place. This transfer of weight can be gradual. A shoulder settles a little deeper. Fingers uncurl. The tongue rests more loosely in the mouth. The space between the eyebrows smooths without being instructed. The brain notices these changes as part of a larger pattern. Less muscular preparation means fewer signals associated with movement. The body is no longer arranged as though it may need to stand, turn, reach, or respond. Stillness becomes more convincing when it is chosen. Choice matters because the nervous system responds differently when a person feels able to adjust, pause, or stop. A restful position is more reassuring when it can be changed. A quiet room feels easier when the door can be opened. A conversation feels calmer when leaving is possible. Control does not need to be absolute. No one controls every sound, sensation, or future event. What often matters is having influence over the immediate environment. A lamp can be switched off later. A blanket can be removed. The volume can be lowered. A glass of water is within reach. These small possibilities tell the brain that discomfort does not have to be endured without response. A sense of agency reduces the need for constant anticipation. When the body knows there are simple options available, it may spend less effort preparing for every possible change. This is one reason clear plans can feel settling. Knowing what will happen in the next hour, where necessary items are kept, or how to respond to an ordinary interruption reduces the number of unanswered questions. Preparation creates a small reserve of certainty. Before resting, people often perform practical checks without thinking of them as part of the science of safety. A phone is placed where it can be found. The path through the room is cleared. Tomorrow's clothing is prepared. A needed object is returned to its usual place. These actions do not guarantee that the night will unfold perfectly. They reduce avoidable uncertainty. The brain is less likely to continue rehearsing a task when the task has already been given a place and a time. Writing something down can have a similar effect. A thought held only in memory may be repeated because the brain is trying not to lose it. Once recorded, The information no longer requires the same level of internal rehearsal. The note becomes an external container. Human beings have always used containers, markers, lists, and arranged objects to reduce the demands placed on memory. A tool hung in a known location does not need to be searched for. Fruit stored in a labeled place does not need to be repeatedly checked. A pathway marked clearly does not need to be rediscovered. Order supports safety partly because it allows the mind to stop carrying every detail at once. Boundaries also perform this organizing function. A boundary tells the brain where one responsibility ends and another begins. The work area is separate from the resting area. Daytime clothing is put away. The final message has been answered. The remaining tasks belong to tomorrow. Without boundaries, activity can spread into every part of the evening. The body may be lying down while the mind continues moving through unfinished roles. A clear transition helps the nervous system recognize that one mode of attention is no longer required. This is not the same as completing everything. Human days rarely end with every question answered. Safety often comes from knowing that incompletion can remain contained. A task can be unfinished and still be safely paused. The brain learns this through repeated experience. Work is left overnight and remains manageable in the morning. A decision is delayed and nothing is lost. A thought is written down and can be found again. Each repetition teaches that watchfulness is not the only way to keep life in order. Within the quiet of the body, breathing continues without supervision. The heart adjusts its rhythm. Muscles accept support. Nearby objects remain reachable, and tomorrow's concerns have been given a temporary boundary. There is still movement inside, but it is no longer movement toward action. It is the steady work of a living body discovering that, for this moment, it can do less. A place can feel reassuring because it carries signs that someone has cared for it. A repaired step, a clean surface, a working lamp, or a path kept clear may seem like ordinary details, yet together they communicate that the environment is being noticed and maintained. The brain responds not only to objects, but also to evidence of attention. When a room appears cared for, many small uncertainties have already been removed. Loose items have been put away. Broken parts have been repaired. Useful things remain where they can be found. The space suggests that someone has considered what people may need there. This feeling extends beyond private homes. A library with clear signs, a garden with tended paths, or a quiet waiting area with comfortable seating can all create a similar impression. The environment seems to have been shaped with human use in mind. Maintenance makes a place easier to trust because it shows continuity. A well-kept door suggests that it is opened and closed reliably many times. A lamp that turns on smoothly confirms that the room's systems are functioning as expected. A railing that feels solid tells the body that support is available. None of these details needs to attract much attention. Their value lies partly in not creating a problem. Good design often becomes almost invisible when it works well. The floor is even. The handle is easy to reach. The chair supports the body without requiring adjustment. The path from one area to another is obvious. The brain is freed from solving small physical puzzles. When an object behaves as expected, the interaction ends quickly. A drawer opens, an item is retrieved, and the drawer closes. There is no need to examine the mechanism or prepare for a second attempt. Every successful interaction adds a small amount of confidence. The environment appears cooperative. This cooperation can be designed into spaces through what are sometimes called affordances. An affordance is a clue about how something can be used. A handle suggests pulling. A flat plate on a door suggests pushing. A wide step invites the foot to land securely. When these clues are clear, movement feels natural. The brain does not have to pause and interpret every object. The body can act with less hesitation because the space quietly explains itself. Confusing design produces the opposite effect. A door that looks as though it should be pushed but must be pulled creates a brief mismatch between expectation and reality. The mistake is minor, yet it requires correction. In a well-designed resting environment, such corrections are reduced. Common actions can be completed smoothly, even when attention is tired. The switch is where the hand expects it to be. The edge of the rug lies flat. The route to the bathroom does not require navigating around unfamiliar objects. These details support what might be called environmental confidence. The sense that ordinary movement through a place will remain manageable. Care is also visible in cleanliness, though comfort does not require perfection. A room can be lived in, softly cluttered, and still feel cared for. What matters is often whether the environment appears stable rather than neglected. Fresh bedding, an empty bin, a wiped table, or a cup washed and returned to its shelf can signal renewal. They show that yesterday's use has been gently completed and that the space is ready for another cycle. Cleaning changes sensory information as well. It removes unexpected textures, lingering odors, and visual distractions. Surfaces become easier to recognize. Familiar materials regain their usual appearance and feel. The effect is not simply aesthetic. Orderly care reduces the number of unexplained details in the environment. People often create this feeling through small acts before someone else arrives. A lamp is turned on near the entrance. A chair is moved into a comfortable position. Water is set out. The room is warmed or aired. These gestures communicate welcome without requiring a speech. They tell the arriving person that their presence has been anticipated. Being anticipated can feel deeply reassuring because it means the environment does not need to be negotiated from the beginning. There is already a place to sit. A coat can be hung. The next step is clear. Hospitality, in its gentlest form, is the design of a smooth arrival. Many traditional homes include transitional spaces for this purpose. A porch, entryway, vestibule, or sheltered threshold creates a pause between outside and inside. Shoes may be removed. Clothing may be adjusted. The body is given time to recognize that it has entered a different kind of space. Thresholds help the brain change expectations gradually. Instead of moving directly from open movement into private rest, there is an intermediate zone. The sounds become softer. The light changes. Materials underfoot shift. The transition itself becomes meaningful. Public spaces can use similar principles. A clearly marked entrance, visible reception point, and simple route through a building reduce uncertainty for newcomers. Seating placed where people can understand the room allows them to pause without feeling in the way. A comfortable seat often provides both support and orientation. The back is protected by a wall or a solid chair. The main activity of the room remains visible. Personal space is defined without complete isolation. Small distances matter. Seating that is too close may feel crowded, while seating placed too far apart can make quiet companionship difficult. Thoughtful arrangement allows people to choose between closeness and privacy. Choice appears again as an important part of reassuring design. A person may prefer the corner, the window, the brighter table, or the quieter side of a room. When several reasonable options are available, the environment does not insist on one correct way to occupy it. The brain can select the position that feels most manageable. This principle is visible in the resting places chosen by many animals. A dog may move between a cool floor and a padded bed. A bird may select a branch with the right balance of cover and space. A grazing animal may settle where the ground is dry and the group remains nearby. The chosen location often provides several advantages at once. It is physically comfortable, easy to enter and leave, familiar in scent, and positioned within a known environment. Animals also respond to signs that a resting place remains undisturbed. Nests are repaired. Bedding materials are rearranged. Sleeping areas are revisited when they continue to meet the animal's needs. In different ways, humans do the same. Pillows are adjusted. Curtains are drawn. A bedside surface is cleared. The resting place is prepared not as a perfect display, but as a usable refuge. Preparation turns an ordinary area into a place that is ready. Readiness is a quiet form of safety. The room does not need urgent attention. Its systems are working. Its pathways are clear. Useful objects are nearby. The space has been cared for by someone in the past and can be cared for again. As the body settles, these signs remain in the background. A smooth handle, a steady chair, a folded blanket, and a light that responds with one touch. All carry the same gentle message. The environment is not only present, it has been prepared to support rest. Safety can also be felt through movement, especially when that movement is slow, regular, and supported. A chair rocking gently, a hammock shifting in a small arc, or a train moving with an even rhythm can create a curious sense of stillness within motion. The body does not need complete immobility in order to rest. It often needs movement that is understandable. Deep inside the inner ear lies the vestibular system, a group of delicate structures that helps the brain detect balance, direction, and acceleration. It reports whether the head is turning, rising, falling, or moving forward. Together with vision and signals from the muscles and joints, it allows the body to know how it is positioned in space. Sudden or irregular movement requires careful processing. The body must decide how to remain balanced and whether posture needs to change. Slow, repeating motion is different. Once its pattern becomes clear, the brain can begin predicting where the body will be a moment later. A rocking chair moves forward, slows, changes direction, and returns. Each cycle prepares the brain for the next. The motion remains contained within a narrow range. There is no destination to calculate and no need to guide the movement actively. This predictability can make rocking feel less like travel and more like being held by a rhythm. Human beings encounter rhythmic movement very early in life. Before birth, the developing body experiences the motion of walking, turning, and breathing. After birth, being carried introduces similar patterns of gentle acceleration and pause. These early experiences may help explain why steady movement can remain familiar long into adulthood. The effect is not limited to people. Many animals become calmer when resting in structures that move slightly with their bodies. Birds sleep on branches that sway with the wind. Tree-dwelling mammals settle on flexible limbs or woven nests. Marine animals may rest, while water lifts and lowers them in repeating cycles. Their balance systems do not simply tolerate these movements, they learn their regularity. A bird on a branch makes tiny automatic adjustments as the branch shifts beneath its feet. Muscles respond without requiring full attention. Once the movement remains within familiar limits, the branch can continue swaying while the animal rests. The environment is moving, but it is moving in a known way. This distinction helps explain why some journeys become unexpectedly soothing. Inside a smoothly moving train, the body receives a collection of repeating signals. Wheels create a low rhythm. The carriage sways gently. The view outside passes at a steady rate. The traveler is being carried without needing to choose each turn or step. For a while, movement has been transferred to a larger system. That transfer can reduce responsibility. There is no need to propel the body forward or continuously decide where to place the feet. The seat provides support while the vehicle maintains direction. The result can be a temporary feeling of suspension between places. Ordinary tasks are paused because the journey itself is already underway. Not everyone finds motion restful. The brain compares signals from the inner ear, eyes, and body. And discomfort may occur when those signals disagree. Reading in a moving vehicle, for example, gives the eyes a stable page, while the inner ear detects acceleration. Comfortable motion tends to occur when the senses tell a consistent story. The body feels a gentle sway. The eyes can understand its source, and the support beneath remains reliable. Control can matter here too. A rocking chair can be slowed with the feet. A hammock can be steadied with a small shift in position. Knowing that the motion can be changed may allow it to feel more reassuring. Rhythmic movement also organizes attention through time. Just as a repeating sound creates an acoustic pattern, a repeating motion creates a physical one. The body can anticipate the next return. There is a beginning, a curve, and a settling back. This may be one reason repetitive. Hand movements can feel quietly absorbing. Knitting, folding fabric, brushing hair, kneading dough, or slowly turning the pages of a book all create small cycles of motion. The hands follow familiar paths, and the result of each movement is easy to see. Such activities provide clear sensory feedback. The fingers touch a known texture. The object responds in an expected way. A small task moves steadily toward completion. The mind is not required to hold many possibilities at once. Traditional evening work often contained these gentle repetitions. Fibers were spun, tools were cleaned, clothing was mended, and food was prepared for the following day. The actions were useful, yet their rhythms also marked a gradual reduction in the scale of activity. Large movements across fields, roads, and workplaces gave way to smaller movements performed within shelter. The body moved inward before becoming still. Modern routines can contain similar transitions. A face is washed with familiar motions. Fabric is folded. A brush follows the same path. A book is closed and placed down. Each movement is simple enough to complete without urgency. It tells the nervous system that activity is becoming narrower, slower, and more contained. The sensation of being supported during movement is especially important. A person can relax more easily when a chair, mattress, or floor receives the body's weight consistently. The brain does not need to prepare for slipping or make large corrections. Support allows movement to remain soft. This principle appears in the design of cradles, porch swings, suspended seats, and gently curved rocking furniture found in many parts of the world. Their shapes limit motion to a predictable pathway. The movement cannot wander freely in every direction. A good rocking structure returns toward its center. That return may be part of what makes it feel reassuring. However far the chair moves within its small arc, it comes back. The body experiences change without losing its point of reference. Safety often contains this combination: enough movement to remain alive and comfortable, along with a reliable center. Breathing has a center. Walking has a repeating exchange between steps. Waves rise and fall around an average level. A swinging branch bends and returns. The natural world is rarely motionless. Stability is often created not by preventing movement, but by keeping movement within familiar boundaries. In a quiet room, the body may notice one of these gentle cycles. A chair shifts slightly. Curtains move with mild air. The mattress responds to breathing and settles again. Nothing is perfectly still, yet nothing is carrying the body away. The motion returns. The support remains. And the brain can learn the shape of the rhythm well enough to rest within it. The brain often learns that a place is safe through events that do not happen. A floorboard makes its usual sound and nothing follows. A branch brushes lightly against a window, then becomes still. The heating system begins its familiar cycle and ends exactly as expected. Each ordinary moment passes without requiring a response. These uneventful experiences may seem too small to matter, yet they are part of how the nervous system updates its understanding of the world. Safety is rarely established by a single piece of evidence. It grows through repetition, as the brain observes that familiar signals continue to lead toward familiar, manageable outcomes. When something changes in the environment, attention turns toward it. This brief shift is sometimes called an orienting response. The head may turn slightly. Hearing becomes more focused. The eyes search for a source. For a moment, the brain gives the new information priority. Once the source is identified, the response can end. A soft sound came from cooling wood. A moving shadow was created by a curtain. A faint vibration belonged to a passing vehicle in the distance. The event becomes understandable, and attention is released from it. Understanding is important because uncertainty often holds attention longer than intensity alone. A quiet, unexplained sound may remain more noticeable than a louder sound whose source is obvious. When the brain can connect an event with a familiar cause, it does not need to keep the question open. This is why being able to interpret a room matters so much at night. In daylight, visual information quickly explains many sounds. After the lights are lowered, the brain relies more heavily on memory. It remembers where objects stand, how the building moves, and which noises belong to its ordinary systems. Each correct interpretation strengthens the map. The sound from one corner belongs to a pipe. The soft click near the doorway belongs to a cooling hinge. The low movement above comes from airflow through the ceiling vent. These details become less like interruptions and more like the quiet language of the building. Older houses often have especially rich nighttime languages. Timber expands and contracts. Water moves through long pipes. Wind presses gently against different surfaces. A new resident may notice every sound, while someone who has lived there for years hears a recognizable sequence. Familiarity does not remove the sounds. It gives them meaning. The brain also learns safety through sensory agreement. When several senses provide matching information, the surroundings become easier to trust. The eyes see a stable room. The skin feels steady air. The ears hear the same low background sounds. Every channel tells a similar story. When sensory information agrees, the brain requires fewer corrections. There is no puzzle to solve between what is seen and what is felt. The space behaves as one coherent environment rather than a set of unrelated signals. This agreement can extend through time. Morning light enters from the expected direction. Afternoon activity fades at a familiar hour. Evening sounds arrive in their usual order. The room changes, but it changes according to a pattern that has been observed many times. The brain becomes skilled at distinguishing change with instability from change that deserves closer attention. A shadow moving slowly as the moon crosses the sky is different from an abrupt flash. Rain growing softer over an hour is different from an isolated sharp noise. Gradual change can be absorbed into prediction. This skill is visible in animals choosing and revisiting resting sites. Before settling, many species spend time gathering information. A deer may pause and listen before lowering its body. A rabbit may inspect the edges of a sheltered area. A bird may approach a roost, leave briefly, and return. These actions allow the animal to build a sensory picture. Air movement carries sense from the surroundings. Sound reveals nearby activity. The structure of the ground or branch is tested through touch and weight. Once the place behaves consistently, inspection decreases. Many animals return to the same resting locations because previous nights provide valuable information. The site has already demonstrated that it offers suitable cover, stable support, and a manageable temperature. Its sounds and scents are known. Returning saves effort. A completely new resting place requires a new map, while an established one comes with a history of successful rest. Humans create similar histories without always noticing. A particular side of the bed becomes familiar. A favorite seat offers a known view of the room. A regular place beside a wall or near a window begins to feel naturally correct. The body remembers where support will be found before fully settling into position. Repeated uneventful nights also teach the brain that temporary awareness can end safely. A person hears a sound, identifies it, and returns attention to rest. The next time the same sound occurs, recognition may happen faster. Eventually, it may barely enter conscious thought. This is not carelessness. It is efficient learning. A nervous system that treated every familiar event as completely new would spend enormous energy repeating the same work. Learning allows the brain to preserve attention for genuine changes while placing harmless patterns in the background. The feeling of safety can therefore deepen slowly. A new apartment may feel unfamiliar during the first evening. After several nights, the route from bed to doorway is known. After several weeks, the sounds of nearby rooms have acquired their usual timing. After many months, the place may feel understandable even in darkness. Time turns a structure into a lived environment. Small personal traces contribute to this transformation. Books gather in known places. Fabric takes on the mild scent of the room. Frequently used objects develop familiar textures. The space begins to reflect the habits of the person living within it. These traces confirm continuity. The room today is connected with the room of yesterday. Objects have not merely remained still, they have participated in repeated routines. Continuity reduces the sense that each evening must begin from nothing. There is already a remembered path into quiet. There is evidence that the lights have been lowered before, that the room has held stillness before, and that morning has followed many times. The brain does not need absolute certainty about the whole world. It gathers certainty locally from the area immediately around the body. This surface is steady. This sound has a source. This shadow moves slowly. This place has carried many ordinary nights without asking for urgent action. One by one, unanswered questions become familiar. Explanations. And as the environment continues behaving in the way memory predicts, watchfulness has less work to do. Attention can return to the simplest signals, the support beneath the body, the quiet air, and the passage of another uneventful moment. Safety does not always make the mind smaller or less active. Sometimes it does the opposite. When the brain no longer needs to focus closely on possible problems, attention can widen. Curiosity returns. Ordinary details become interesting again. The environment is no longer something to inspect cautiously, but something that can be explored at an easy pace. This change can be seen across many animal species. A small mammal leaving its shelter may pause at the entrance, gather information, and then begin moving outward. At first, its path remains close to cover. As the surroundings continue to behave predictably, the animal travels farther, investigates scents, and spends more time examining objects. Exploration becomes possible because watchfulness has decreased enough to free other forms of attention. In behavioral science, a protected location is sometimes described as a secure base. It is a place from which an animal can investigate the wider environment and to which it can return. The importance of the base lies not only in physical protection, but in availability. It remains there while exploration occurs. A burrow, nest, shaded hollow, or familiar group can serve this function. The animal does not need to remain inside the refuge continuously. Its presence makes movement beyond the refuge easier. Human environments often work in a similar way. A familiar room, reliable home, or trusted meeting place can become a stable point within a larger world. Knowing that there is somewhere to return to can make unfamiliar experiences feel more manageable. This reveals an interesting quality of safety. It does not require the removal of all novelty. A completely unchanging environment would provide little opportunity for learning. Instead, the brain seems to prefer a balance, enough stability to remain oriented, with enough variation to stay gently engaged. A quiet garden offers this balance. The pathways remain in place, while leaves move and flowers change through the seasons. A familiar neighborhood keeps its basic structure even as different people pass through it. A well-known room stays recognizable while daylight shifts across its surfaces. The stable elements provide a framework. The changing elements can then be observed without making the whole environment feel uncertain. This balance is also present in play. Young mammals often play when their immediate needs have been met and the surroundings feel sufficiently secure. They chase, tumble, investigate, and repeat movements that have no urgent practical purpose. Play is energetically expensive. It uses time and attention that could otherwise be directed toward feeding or observation. Its appearance therefore suggests that the nervous system has judged the moment to be manageable enough for experimentation. Adult animals show quieter forms of exploratory behavior. A cat investigates a newly opened box. A crow turns an object over with its beak. An octopus reaches toward an unfamiliar shape, touching it repeatedly before deciding whether it is useful. These actions reflect more than intelligence. They reflect available attention. When immediate vigilance is high, the brain narrows its priorities. It focuses on the clearest and most urgent information. When conditions appear stable, the range of possible interests expands. Attention can move toward texture, pattern, novelty, and choice. Human curiosity follows a similar rhythm. A person who feels settled in a space may notice the grain of wood on a table, the structure of a melody, or the way shadows change across a wall. These details were present all along, but the mind now has room to receive them. The ability to become absorbed in something gentle may itself be evidence that watchfulness has softened. Reading provides a familiar example. To enter a story, the brain must temporarily reduce its attention to the immediate room. The eyes remain on the page while the mind follows events elsewhere. This shift is easier when the surroundings are trusted enough to remain in the background. Creative work also depends on this freedom. Drawing, writing, building, or quietly arranging objects requires attention to move beyond immediate practical needs. The mind experiments with possibilities because it does not need every thought to produce an urgent result. Safety therefore supports more than rest. It supports imagination, yet exploration feels most comfortable when returning remains possible. A reader can look up from the page. A person walking through a garden can follow the path back. Someone trying a new activity can pause without losing their place. The option to return keeps novelty within clear boundaries. This principle appears in the design of peaceful spaces. A reading alcove may open toward a larger room while retaining a sheltered seat. A garden path may curve out of view but include familiar landmarks. A window may offer a wide landscape from within a protected interior. These places combine invitation with refuge. They allow attention to travel while the body remains supported. Museums, libraries, and parks often use resting points for the same reason. Benches, quiet corners, and clear maps give visitors places to pause and regain orientation. Exploration becomes less tiring when it is divided by moments of return. The brain seems to appreciate these cycles. Move outward, gather information, come back, and settle. Breathing follows a cycle of expansion and return. Walking carries the body away from one point and toward another. Conversation moves into new ideas, then pauses. Even thought itself often travels outward before returning to something familiar. A secure rhythm allows movement without losing orientation. This may help explain why gentle novelty can be relaxing at bedtime. A calm story introduces new information, but its voice remains steady. A science fact opens a small window onto something unfamiliar, yet the listener stays within the same quiet room. The mind can wander without needing to manage the journey. There is comfort in learning when nothing is required afterward. No test will follow. No decision must be made. The information may simply pass through awareness, interesting for a moment before being released. Curiosity becomes light rather than demanding. As the brain receives new ideas within a stable setting, it practices a quiet form of trust. Attention moves outward, discovers something, and returns to the body without difficulty. The room remains unchanged. The resting place is still present. The thread of the narration continues. Safety is not only the permission to stop, it is also the permission to explore without becoming lost, to notice without preparing for action, and to let the mind travel while knowing that it can always return to stillness. Deep within the brain, the feeling of safety is not produced by a single center. It emerges from a conversation among several systems, each contributing a different kind of information. One notices what has changed. Another remembers where the body is. Another compares the present with earlier experience. Together, they form a constantly updated estimate of what the moment means. The amygdala is often described as the brain's alarm system, but this description is incomplete. It responds to significance more broadly. It helps identify events that may deserve attention, including unfamiliar sounds, sudden movements, and emotionally meaningful social signals. Its task is not simply to declare that something is wrong. It helps the brain decide what should be examined more closely. Nearby memory systems provide context. The hippocampus, a structure important for forming and organizing memories, helps distinguish one place and situation from another. A sound heard in a quiet bedroom may be interpreted differently from the same sound heard in a busy station. The physical sensation is only part of the message. The setting changes its meaning. This ability to use context prevents the brain from responding to every sensation in exactly the same way. A faint mechanical hum may be unfamiliar at first. The amygdala notices its novelty, while memory systems gather details about when it appears and what follows. After repeated evenings in which the sound begins, continues steadily, and ends without consequence, the brain places it within a known pattern. The sound has not become quieter. Its meaning has become clearer. Regions in the front of the brain also participate in interpretation. They help compare possibilities, hold information in mind, and update an initial reaction when more evidence becomes available. A brief noise may attract attention, but recognition soon follows. It was the refrigerator beginning another ordinary cycle. The first response and the later understanding are both useful. One allows the brain to notice change. The other allows attention to return to rest. Safety depends on this ability to revise. If every first impression remained fixed, the nervous system would continue reacting to events that had already been explained. Instead, the brain is designed to gather new information. A shadow becomes a curtain. A vibration becomes distant traffic. A sound becomes part of the building. With each correction, uncertainty decreases. This process happens so quickly that it may feel like a single moment, yet several kinds of information have been combined. The sound has a direction. Memory supplies a likely source. Vision confirms the shape of the room. The body remains supported. Nothing else changes. The brain does not ask for perfect certainty. It looks for enough agreement among signals to choose the most reasonable interpretation. This is sometimes described as probabilistic processing. The brain estimates what is most likely rather than waiting for complete proof. It uses past experience to predict the present, then adjusts those predictions when new details arrive. In a familiar environment, the predictions are usually accurate. The light switch works. The floor remains level. A known voice sounds like itself. Each successful prediction strengthens confidence in the larger setting. A new environment contains fewer established predictions. The brain may therefore keep more information in the foreground. It has not yet learned which sounds repeat, how light changes across the room, or what activity belongs to nearby spaces. As experience accumulates, attention becomes more selective. The brain no longer needs to study everything equally. This selectivity is one of the hidden gifts of familiarity. It allows ordinary sensations to remain ordinary. The nervous system also pays attention to clusters of signals rather than relying on one detail alone. A warm lamp may feel pleasant, but its meaning becomes stronger when the room is quiet, the door is closed, the body is supported, and familiar evening actions have already taken place. No single cue carries the whole message. Their combination creates a pattern. This is why environments can feel slightly unsettled when their signals conflict. A room may be visually calm while containing an irregular sound. The temperature may be comfortable while the lighting remains bright and active. The brain receives mixed information and may continue evaluating the space. When signals agree, interpretation becomes simpler. Soft light, stable air, low voices, and unhurried movement all point in the same direction. The brain can reduce the number of competing explanations. Coherence itself feels reassuring. The same principle applies to social communication. Words become easier to trust when tone, expression, timing, and behavior match. A gentle statement spoken with a steady voice and followed by consistent action creates a unified message. When different channels agree, the brain spends less effort deciding which one is accurate. This is not a matter of consciously analyzing every detail. Much of the work happens automatically. The nervous system detects rhythm, timing, facial movement, distance, and posture, long before these observations become complete thoughts. The result may simply be a quiet sense that the situation makes sense. Making sense is an important part of safety. The brain prefers explanations that connect events into a stable model. A building has familiar nighttime sounds because materials cool. A companion is moving slowly because the evening is ending. The room is becoming darker because the lamp has been lowered. When events fit together, they require less monitoring. The brain's estimate can also change from moment to moment. Safety is not a permanent label attached to a place. It is a living calculation shaped by current conditions, memory, and bodily state. A familiar room may feel different when the body is overtired. A new room may become comfortable quickly when its layout is clear and its sensory patterns are gentle. The brain is always combining the external world with information from within. This flexibility allows safety to be rebuilt. A calm pattern does not have to be ancient to become meaningful. New associations can form. A recently chosen reading chair can gradually become a place of ease. A new evening sound can become familiar. A different room can gather its own history of peaceful nights. The brain is not only a keeper of old reactions, it is also a learner. Each quiet experience offers fresh evidence. The lamp was lowered, and the room remained understandable. The unfamiliar sound was identified. The night passed through its ordinary sequence. With repetition, the brain updates its expectations. What once required attention becomes part of the background. What once felt uncertain becomes explainable. The network of memory, perception, and interpretation arrives at a softer conclusion. There is nothing important to solve in this moment. The room is coherent. The signals agree. The body remains supported while the brain continues its gentle work of prediction. And because the next moment is likely to resemble this one, attention can become quieter before it arrives. Even during sleep, the brain does not become completely disconnected from the world. It continues receiving information, sorting sounds, sensing temperature, and noticing changes in the position of the body. Rest is not an empty state. It is a carefully protected form of awareness in which much of the surrounding world is allowed to pass without requiring a response. The sleeping brain becomes more selective. Signals still travel inward from the ears, skin, muscles, and internal organs, but many are filtered before reaching full awareness. A steady background sound may continue through the night without becoming part of a dream or waking thought. The gentle pressure of bedding remains present, yet it rarely needs to be examined. The room continues existing around the sleeper, while attention turns inward. This filtering is one of the quiet achievements of sleep. The brain does not need to close every sensory doorway. It only needs to decide that most of what is arriving can remain in the background. Familiarity helps with that decision. A known environment contains patterns that have already been learned. The sounds have histories. The surfaces behave consistently. The air changes within expected limits. Because these signals have been classified many times before, they are less likely to demand complete attention. Sleep can therefore deepen while a faint connection with the surroundings remains. This connection is useful. A person may shift position when pressure builds, pull a blanket closer when the air cools, or briefly surface from sleep when something changes enough to matter. Often, these adjustments happen with little or no memory by morning. The body protects comfort without fully returning to wakefulness. Throughout the night, sleep moves through different stages. Some periods are lighter, while others are deeper. The brain cycles through them rather than descending once and remaining in a single condition until morning. These cycles allow different forms of restoration to take place while preserving flexibility. At certain moments, the sleeping brain is more responsive to the environment. At others, external information is held farther away. A stable room supports this natural movement because it does not repeatedly pull attention outward. temperature remains manageable. Light stays low. Sounds follow recognizable patterns. The body is allowed to move to its own rhythms without being asked to restart the work of interpreting the surroundings. The deepest feeling of safety may not be a feeling that is consciously noticed at all. It may appear as the absence of repeated checking. The mind does not return to the doorway. It does not reconsider the arrangement of the room. It does not keep asking whether the temperature will change or whether an ordinary sound needs an explanation. The questions become unnecessary, and then they become quiet. This is different from trying to convince oneself that everything is perfect. Safety does not require perfection. Rooms contain small noises. Bodies change position. Weather moves beyond the walls. Thoughts sometimes continue for a while after the lights are lowered. A reassuring environment allows these minor variations to exist within a larger sense of steadiness. Rain can change its pace while remaining rain. Wind can rise briefly and soften again. The body can feel awake for a few minutes without losing the possibility of sleep. A thought can appear without becoming a task. Stability is wide enough to contain movement. The brain often settles more easily when it does not have to produce a particular result. Rest cannot always be commanded. The instruction to relax can become another responsibility, another thing to perform correctly. A quieter approach is to notice that the conditions for rest have been assembled. Even when sleep has not yet arrived, there is support beneath the body. There is air moving through the lungs. There is a boundary around the room. There is time in which nothing important needs to be completed. The body can make use of these conditions in its own way. Across human history, people have created evening spaces that communicate this temporary release from activity. Fires were allowed to settle into embers. Tools were placed aside. Entrances were closed. Voices grew fewer. The useful work of the household gradually became the quieter work of keeping warmth, shelter, and companionship nearby. The details have changed, but the transition remains recognizable. A modern room may be lit by a small lamp rather than a fading fire. A building may hum softly instead of creaking around a hearth. Yet the nervous system still receives a similar collection of messages. The active world is becoming smaller. The immediate space is prepared. What is needed is close enough. What is unfinished can remain unfinished. This narrowing is not a withdrawal from life. It is part of life's rhythm. Attention cannot remain equally open at every hour. The mind needs periods when it does not have to interpret every possibility or prepare for every next step. Night creates a natural boundary around those periods. Within that boundary, trust is practiced in small ways. The body trusts the surface holding it. The mind trusts that a thought can be released and found again later. The sleeping brain trusts familiar patterns enough to let them continue without supervision. Morning does not need to be held in place by constant attention. It approaches on its own. The sky will gradually brighten. The body's internal rhythms will begin shifting again. Sounds that belong to the night will give way to the first movements of a new day. Until then, the hours can remain quiet. Safety is not one signal, one room, or one perfect state of calm. It is a collection of small agreements between the brain, the body, the environment, and the people or creatures who share it. The light remains gentle. Ha! The air remains steady. The resting place continues to support the body. The world nearby behaves in ways that are familiar enough to leave unexplored. Nothing has to be proven. Nothing has to be forced. Watchfulness can become lighter, then quieter, then distant enough to be forgotten. And in this protected interval between one day and the next, the brain can allow the world to continue for a while without its constant attention. The room will keep its shape, the night will keep moving, and the body can rest inside the simple knowledge that, for now, it is held.